Laura, you can let us know when you're ready.
This meeting is being recorded.
Great, we must be ready. So Stephanie, would you do a roll call, please?
It's the Wi-Fi there.
Kathy Chandler Henry,
Present.
Alden Vandenbrink,
I'm here.
Doug Monger,
Here.
John Ely, Kathleen Curry, Mark Catlin, Mark Rober,
Here.
Mike Richard, Reby Hazard,
Here.
Scott McGinnis,
Here.
Stan Winery, Steve Beckley,
Here.
Taylor Haas,
Here.
Tom Gray.
Hey, you didn't call me, but I'm here.
Oh, Marty, sorry.
Great.
Sorry about
Well,
that.
all, we do have a quorum, and Director Curry sends her apologies. She had a last minute conflict and is unable to join us. So thanks all for being here. We've got a busy agenda and we'll just jump right into that. But I did want to first call your attention to an email that Stephanie sent out yesterday, which has testimony from our very own general manager, Andy, in front of the Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries Subcommittee that happened on Tuesday of this week. And the written comments there are very helpful as well. So thanks, Andy, for doing that. And we are going to try our best to finish in 1 hour today. So it depends on how much discussion we have on the gnarly topics that continue to be facing us. We'll get started with external affairs from Zane, and Zane did send a memo to us yesterday, which arrived last night. So we know you sent it earlier. But
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do apologize for that. I tried to send it earlier in the afternoon, and one of our friends at Eagle River Water and Sand texted me late last night to see if our ledge update, which they watched closely, had come out, and I looked to find it in my outbox. So I apologize for that. Before I dive in, I do want to give some credit where credit is deserved. Andy Mueller did an excellent job at the House Natural Resource Committee earlier this week. But our own EA team member, Lindsay DeFreitas, carried the bulk of the burden in helping to draft that testimony. And I just wanted to give Lindsay a shout out and tell her thank you. Those types of invitations often come with very little notice, and we had about a week's heads up and only about 4 days to get written testimony submitted, and Lindsay did an excellent job on that. So thank you.
Great, Lindsay, I see you're online, so please accept our appreciation. It was some great written testimony, so thank you.
Thanks.
Diving in on the legislative update, as I indicated in my email, it has the pace of activity at the Capitol has picked up significantly in the last couple of weeks. The long appropriations bill is out. The Senate passed it on second reading yesterday and is expected to pass it out on third reading today. It will spend most of next week in the House, I expect, before it goes back to the Joint Budget Committee, where all of those amendments that the House and Senate have worked so hard to attach will likely be stricken and returned to its original form. The primary, the bigger issue at hand, though, is Senate Bill 213. This is the governor's land use planning bill. It proposes a major and I would argue unprecedented overhaul of Colorado's land use regulatory authority. I noted in my email to you that it would be the first legislative change to Colorado land use planning, which I think we all recognize is in need of some work, but it is a major overhaul and the first legislative change to planning in 50 years. It does focus primarily on urban and resort communities. It does not override local control for counties. The primary concern that I have is related to Colorado Constitution's Section 21, the single subject requirement for legislation. This bill is a land use bill, but it has extensive other sections, including an entire act on, or an entire section on water loss audit reports. This is a difficult bill to summarize at this point, where staff is focusing its attention is really on the water planning elements, water, sewer, stormwater service extensions, and then those water loss audits in section 14 that I just mentioned. Staff is not asking for a position today, but would welcome feedback from directors and members of the public and our partners that are participating in the call today. I am, of course, happy to take a position from the board if the board wanted to go there today. But my guess is this is going to take a little longer to fully digest and understand how some of these water requirements may or may not impact the district.
Great. Director Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, and thanks, Zane. I'm just curious where this is coming from. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of things that we can do in our state code to improve land use, but an overhaul like this usually requires that a lot of work have happened ahead of this. So I'm just wondering what's driving it, who's behind it, where do you see it headed?
I see it moving quick. It could receive a hearing as soon as they are finished with the long bill. So within the next couple of weeks. I think the origins of it are tied to the affordable housing issue and many of the concerns that the governor's office say they have heard over the course of, in their fact sheet, they say 125 meetings with local and county elected officials throughout the state. This is the governor's attempt to address affordability in housing and growth restrictions is my short answer to that question.
If I could follow up,
Yeah.
So I understand that, but that goes to your point about single subject. Why are they not limiting it to that issue, which is a huge issue coming from one of those counties? And I'm just wondering, I mean, a whole land use change, though, is a much bigger undertaking. So I'm just, how did it get that much bigger?
I don't have a good answer for you on that, okay. Director Haas, I apologize. I think this caught a number of folks by surprise, including the Colorado Municipal League, which has gone as far as to call it a brazen power grab, something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but it's got a number of folks concerned within the ranks of CML. I'd be happy to send around a good overview of kind of where different players are at on it. Very little response from the water community at this point, though.
And I can weigh in a little bit. CAST has also taken a position going through several of the sections of it. QQ will likely be taking a position and writing some concerns that came out with some comments either yesterday or today on this. And counties are very concerned, even though it doesn't include counties right now. It will likely in the next iteration of the bill. So things like local control, 1041 abilities to regulate water. And there's no provision that the housing that's demanded here will be affordable. So it's big concerns. We've got Director Alden Brink and then Director Gray.
Thank you. Not you. I'm saying thank you for my computer because it's doesn't want to cooperate all the time. Yeah, I see a lot of problems with this. So I guess I've run water utilities and utilities now for 30 plus years, and making it mandated that you have to report your water loss to the state, that's a problem. And because I know the state's already got it, and there's other federal funding programs to where in order to be eligible, you have to maintain a certain amount of water loss not to exceed. And if you do, then that raises red flags on your ability to receive funding. So I think there's other avenues they can take rather than memorializing it within this that they can really do to make an impact rather than their present proposal. There's other means of doing this. This really spooks me. There's a whole lot in here. And I haven't read the whole thing, but there's a lot of problems in that thing.
Great, thank you. Director Gray?
Sorry, my hand was up by mistake.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think you owe people a donut whenever that happens. Any other comments on this? The suggestion from Zane is to keep our eye on things and potentially weigh in as it moves forward. Anybody opposed to that direction?
Madam President, if I may, I just,
Sure.
we had made a commitment to our constituents that would give them an opportunity to weigh in on things like this with the board. So maybe before you head for a direction, if you could just see if someone wanted to comment.
Thank you for that reminder. I have it on my notes and forgot, so thank you. Anyone from the public, if you would like to address this, just go ahead and put your hand up. We have Nancy Fishering from Uncompahgre Valley.
I'm from Uncompahgre Valley, but also I'm going to weigh in from wearing my Club 20 hat as well. If you just monitor it, there's just another month, over a month left. You guys don't meet again for 2 weeks, right? So this is going to move a lot faster than we think, right, Zane? So how do we weigh in if you guys don't meet again for 2 weeks? We want to weigh in too. I mean, the water audit thing that Al just talked about, I'm sure, I haven't talked to my board either, but I'm quite sure Uncompahgre will not want to be doing one more piece of measurement.
I think it's a good point, Nancy. Thank you for the comments. To the extent I can respond, I would just say we are lucky that the long bill is where it is right now. It has a long road ahead of it. It may get an initial hearing sooner than later in the Senate. I would be happy to work with the River District Board to develop comments specific to the water components of this legislation, and send those around for the board's review, so that we can provide input. Whether that changes where the board wants to go with a formal position or not, I don't know.
Great. Cindy Dozier.
Yes, this is another question for Zane. Thank you so much. Will you also address the single item issue in this bill along with the water?
That is, as I opened in my comments, I think that's where I'm scratching my head the most on this. And so, yes, I'm happy to, so long as my council and general manager and the board agree.
Thank you. And I would also appreciate if there's a need for others to submit letters and you see it because you're right there, sending out a little notification to us. We all agree with what you're saying here today.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy. Director McGinnis.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, Aim, we better have legal, and I assume you're doing it, do a quick and detailed review of exactly what the implications are of this water section. My concern being that the restriction of water usage or some other type of description of it, and if that creates an impairment on an existing water right. And so we better look real carefully, because this was just pointed out, we don't meet, we could always have a special meeting, but I just think we need to see what the impact or what the reach is of that water section. Maybe you've already done it. If you have, maybe you can brief us now and we should take a position. Or if you haven't done it, then Andy, maybe legal should take a quick look at it, because I'm really worried about them overreaching into the water laws we currently know it and start impacting water rights. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, McGinnis.
We need to mute. There we go.
This is
Direct-
Peter. We have not yet looked at it. In fact, I just saw it recently, but we will look into that as well as the single subject.
Thank you. Director Munger.
I just want to be real brief here, but my days at CCI, Director Rober as well, Chair, this is terrible infringement upon our direct control and the rest. And far as I can see, and briefly, that this is a totally unfunded mandate that they could put down upon local communities. And we ought to, and again, I'm all right to play the game here for a little bit, see where it goes, but this is not good politics. It's not good business. It's not good governance. So thank you very much.
Director Whitmore.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a dreadful piece of legislation from a lot of standpoints. I mean, it's basically, isn't it, pretty much trying to resurrect the land use plan, the state land use board that Governor Lamb. I mean, this goes back to the days of all that's left of that statute is 1041. But this is basically nothing more than a resurrection of that bill where the state was in charge of all land use. I'm really surprised, and the water components I think are very troubling.
Agree. Anyone else want to comment on this? All right. Zane, you want to just talk about how this might look going forward?
Yeah, so what I would propose the staff work to develop some comments related to the specific to the single subject issue and the water elements of the bill. I'm happy to work with council and the general manager on that and then provide it to the board for your review prior to sending comments.
That is not agreeable with anyone, raise your hand and we'll talk about that. Okay, that is our direction then.
Okay. I have two rather straightforward bills for your consideration that I do think would be helpful to have River District positions on. And then one update for the board related to stream restoration. But if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, we'll dive into the two bills for your consideration.
That sounds great.
Great. The first bill is Senate Bill 237. This is the annual transfer to the Water Plan Implementation Cash Fund. That's a JBC budget package bill, not controversial in any way, but is consistent with our support for in past sessions for annual appropriations to that fund. Staff's recommended position on Senate Bill 237 is to support.
Okay, any comments, questions? If not, I'll take a motion. Director Haas?
Just a quick question. Do you, is this impacted in any way by the long bill, or is this a standalone thing?
This is I'm going to look at Amy. This is an orbital bill, so it is ancillary to the long bill, but related to it. It is one of a cluster of bills that follows the long bill annually or travels alongside it.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to support staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Haas, second by Whitmore. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Opposed, same sign. All right. That passes. And go ahead, Zane, with your next.
Second bill is Senate Bill 238. This is Small Communities Water and Wastewater Grant Fund bill that would allow money from the CDPHE, Small Community Water and Wastewater Grant Fund, to be used. Changes the statutory authorization for the use of those dollars to allow them to serve as match requirements up to 10% for bipartisan infrastructure package grants that are available for certain clean water projects for our rural communities in the state and small communities. That being said, I think there are a number of communities within the district that could potentially benefit from this. might take a little bit of pressure off of folks coming to us for CFP dollars to help with matches for these types of applications. I don't see any problems with this bill. It's not a major grant fund at CDPHE, but allowing those dollars to serve as matching dollars for IIJA or bipartisan infrastructure law opportunities seems to me that would be a good use of those state dollars. That being said, the staff's recommendation on this bill is to support.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Longer seconds.
Kathy may be present.
Believe we have a first and a second.
We do. We have a president who's frozen on our screen and seems to be disconnected.
Okay.
Vice President Catlin would like to take over running the meeting until President Chandler Henry restores her virtual presence.
All right, we have a motion in front of us to support staff recommendations. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Okay. Well, right now I don't have a script.
Thank you, Vice President Catlin. The next issue on the agenda for your review and just discussion is still in draft form. So consistent with the board's policy, staff is not asking for a recommendation or a formal position, but we've talked about this in the past, and I wanted to give you an update on where things are headed with the stream restoration bill. And so that being said, the staff at the district has continued to engage in the Water Congress stakeholder meeting, as well as in direct conversations with the bill's potential proponents, Senator Simpson and Senator Roberts. The last draft that came out prior to the draft I sent to the board last night, if I may just be candid, was a bit of a mess. It had a number of provisions that council was concerned about. It really lacked any specificity, or there was a lack of specificity that was concerning not only to us, but to the broader water community related to the historic footprint test. And so with those concerns and the lack of clarity in the last draft in mind, Senator Roberts did host an open public meeting at the Capitol last week to discuss this. River District staff provided a handful of suggestions for how to improve this bill, including the establishment of some sort of size limitation, better definitions for what would constitute a minor stream restoration activity as opposed to a normal stream restoration activity, as well as, again, concerns about that historic footprint approach that had been included in previous drafts. The draft that I sent to you last night is still not perfect, but I do believe it is headed in the right direction. I think the size limitation that they have included, which is for a stream restoration project, to qualify for certain leniency, it must lie below 8 surface acres in new wetted surface area over 1 mile of stream reach. That's the project in its entirety. I still believe that's a little large. What we had thrown out for the sake of discussion was something closer to 2.5 acres with over the course of 5 miles of stream reach. My guess is that this inclusion in this draft is still up for negotiation. With direction from the board, we'll continue to stay at the table on this. I just wanted to give you a brief update on where things stand and at least staff's belief that this is headed in a better direction than where it was the last time we briefed you on it.
Great. Comments or questions for Zane on the restoration bill? Okay, we'll watch for updates on that one as well.
In the loop and let you know if and when there's any movement or formal introduction of the bill.
Thank you, Zane. Anything else on your end?
No, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, next up is General Manager's update, and we've got System Conservation Program update and discussion. We do have a memo from DK on the subject.
And I wanted to give a brief introduction to the subject, and then DK is going to briefly summarize his memo and just indicate where we are on it. I just want to say that we continue to have concerns just about the lack of public process related within our state to protection of water users from injury from this program and our communities from the kind of the apparent disregard from the policies that have been set up by the CWCB with heavy involvement from the River District dealing with water markets of this type, albeit under demand management, but the intrastate impacts are very similar. So I will just say we've had some productive discussions with Commissioner Mitchell and Director Gibbs at DNR and are trying to work through that. I think at this point that program is not something that the district is going to have the capacity to weigh in on in any substantive manner. We are proceeding to prepare comments from the district to the UCRC in terms of our concerns about how this process happened. Their meeting is currently scheduled for April 10th. Their meeting, meaning the UCRC meeting, it will be a virtual meeting, and several of our staff members intend to attend. To the extent that once they send a link out, we're happy to shoot it out to the board and get it to you so you can observe the UCRC in action. But I do understand it may or may not occur on the 10th. I'm not sure. Right now it is set for the 10th, so we are looking forward to that. It is it is a process that is not the way we wish it had been, to say the least. So if you recall, our board and others asked the commissioner to post or make available the applications, and I'm going to turn that over to Dave Kanzer to address what he found as our representative looking at those issues. So Dave, if you
Director Gray, did you want to speak up before DK?
Sure, Andy. I just wanted to ask you. When the program first rolled out, it was a 2-year program, and then now the last I heard, it's well, this is only 1 year. Have you been in any discussions that talk about, we understand it was quick, we had a lot of problems, and that this will be a 1-year thing, and that next year there might be some ability to have some local input and so on? If those discussions, are they happening, or what do you think?
I would say that the authorization from the federal government is a 2-year authorization or extension of that program. Originally, the Upper Basin states had sought a 4-year authorization. It was only due to objections. I forget which senator. There was one senator in particular who objected on the ENR committee. That's why it was limited to 2. It's been entirely unclear as to whether this program will occur again, and we have not yet received commitments that intrastate issues and local concerns will be met. We are working towards that, but nothing at this point to report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right, DK. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
Director Catlin's had his hand up. Sorry.
Sorry, DK. My question is, we keep reading in the paper, Andy, $125 million. How much has been allocated to Colorado or the other 4 states? Do you know?
It's actually unclear because you can't tell from the applications that have been made public much, and that's what DK can talk to. But our understanding is that from the total applications received from the UCRC this year, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $35 million out of that 125. So that's our understanding. What we could tell from the applications is that it's approximately 8,000 plus or minus acre feet from Western Colorado that would be contributed. That would be 0 from the Front Range or the Eastern Slope. But about 8,000 acre feet. It is our understanding, although don't have any direct knowledge because what DK is going to discuss, but in terms of what's available in those applications, it's our understanding that most of those applications are not at the base price of $150 an acre foot, so they're more than that. I don't have the math for you, unfortunately, Director Catlin.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, DK, quick.
All right, quick before something else happens.
All right.
Hopefully you can hear me. Apologies, coming remote. The memo speaks for itself and doesn't say a lot. And the reason it doesn't say a lot is the applications that we've been able to review are quite severely redacted. And so we provided a quick cut and paste on what you can see there, I think on the second page, that all the key information that we would really want to look at is not publicly available. So it's very difficult to see what type of impacts these projects as proposed may have to local water users, water rights, to systems in general or specifically. So, I'm here basically to answer questions on what I've seen. I've only reviewed the Colorado applications. I wasn't able to pull down the other ones, although I understand that they may be available at some location I haven't been able to find. But I'm assuming that they're similarly redacted. So I can leave it there and answer questions. I'm happy to continue to try to dig down, but I'm a little bit frustrated with the level of detail that we're able to see.
Thanks, DK. And Director Whitmore.
I appreciate your frustration, DK. It was just reading your memo. I could feel the frustration, and I concur. The amount of information available is not acceptable. But the thing that I noticed most is that it's producing somewhere in the 8,000 to 9,000 acre feet of water range, which doesn't seem to me to be, is that even going to be measurable by the time you get down to Powell? That just seems ridiculous to me that we'd be spending or agreeing to fallow land or to participate in this as a state when we're talking a de minimis amount of water in the scheme of the Colorado River.
Certainly, I would agree if that's addressed to me. It may be a rhetorical question, I'm not sure, but keep in mind that system conservation is not designed per se to be measured at Lake Powell, of course. Demand management programs would be that ability to shepherd and measure in a better, more accurate way. So the interesting thing that I found also is that there's really just 2 projects that make up the bulk, probably 80 to 90% of that conserved consumptive use in Colorado. And some of that's actually in Wyoming. The Little Snake project and the Grand Valley project as proposed, again, make up the bulk of that. And that's where the impacts may be. And that kind of makes our job a little easier to sniff around and try to figure out potential impacts. But the other smaller ones, we don't have a lot of information on either, and they could have local impacts as well that are certainly concerning. So I definitely agree and understand with what you're saying, but we want to all keep in mind that system conservation as written is not designed to shepherd or protect any water, and it may have I think we all realize very limited impact to what we're trying to address, which is Lake Powell.
I had a question just along the same vein. Is the Bureau doing anything in the lower basin states? I mean, it seems like even if the whole $125 million were used on the system conservation water, it wouldn't make any difference given the overuse in the lower basins. Or are they looking at any programs there or any changes?
Yeah, there are quite a bit of activities going on, and it's quite a moving target. Some of those are voluntary and compensated, and some of those are just voluntary without compensation because, as we know, there's something called intentionally created surplus, which if there is a voluntary action by a lower basin state within the program of ICS, intentionally created surplus, it can stay in Lake Mead and they can recover that at a future date. So that's one class of water. The other DCP related activities are a little bit different. And again, I haven't seen many specifics on those, but I believe that's also in discussion and happening. And I'd turn it over to Andy and others if they have other updates on those.
No, I don't have any additional updates. I would just stress that there's been no agreement among the lower basin states to come up with the water conservation that's needed, which is that 2 to 4 million acre feet. So while there are some minor programs moving forward, as DK indicated, it's nowhere close to what the commissioner correctly called for in terms of reductions, which really in large part need to come out of the lower basin. So there's effectively, especially with the improved snowpack this year and a likely balancing release, we're likely to see a significant amount of water leaving Lake Powell and heading into Lake Mead for release from the Hoover Dam this year. DK, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last 24-month study indicated that we're looking at a release at almost a minimum of 8.23 this year. So up from the 7 million that was identified in the August 24-month study.
Yeah, I would just say that that is also a moving target. The April 24-month study is somewhat of a pivotal study that will set tiers and set final releases under what they call the April adjustment. The March study did identify about 823,000 acre feet of balancing releases on top of the 7 million. So and I think that's going to go up. We've all seen the forecast continue to go up. Our Miracle March has been quite productive. So it could reach 8.23 million, but right now it's a little bit less than that projected.
Okay. Other comments, questions on
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Oh, she would.
You are the chair. I think she froze again.
Okay, good. I'll just take over the meeting now.
And I did want to note that Commissioner or Director Alden Vandenbrink actually might have raised his hands prior to you, Mark, but or Director Calvin. But you're the president or acting president at this point.
My question quickly is, how do we expect to gain if every time it snows, somebody cranks open the dam at Lake Powell? I mean, it's like, okay, we were looking at this thinking there's a good chance we're going to start getting better. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at a chance that, well, no, we're going to let out a whole lot more. 800,000 acre feet, what I thought I heard DK say, is an awful lot of water out of that reservoir. And we don't have it. So where do we go to start saying, look, if you guys are going to play this game, we don't want to play. I mean, we can't help. They continue to dig a hole into that reservoir. So where do we go? That's my question. And I'll just leave it at that. And then Alden, when this is done, you can ask yours.
Well, again, I think if you're talking to me, it seems like somewhat rhetorical, but just as a reminder, we are operating subject to the interim surplus guidelines. The volume of balancing releases is calculated through that system of agreements. That is a temporary interim process, which is currently just beginning to be negotiated for post 2026, because that's when the interim surplus guidelines expire. So in the near term, between now and 2026, that's when we have some ability under the supplemental environmental impact study, which is ongoing now, to make our voices heard. We are understanding that there could be a draft SEIS pursuant to that process as early as mid-April. So stay tuned, and I think we may be directed by you all to provide some input on that. But right now, I think our hands are somewhat tied in terms of operations.
Thanks, DQ. I apologize for my unstable broadband here in Eagle County today. Director Munger.
Wait. Alden, did you want to
I
talk?
think Alden was first. Go ahead, Alden.
Oh, okay.
You
Sorry,
mentioned
Alden.
most everything, but California's got enough water where they got reservoir spilling and doing groundwater injection. So at what point, that 24 months model just got thrown out the window within 4 months of record snowpack in the Rocky Mountains. So when are they going to update their model and say we can start pinching that valve back? Because that SCP is going to have some real damages to our part of the world, as you guys all know.
So I would just say yes, the California probably is going to be taking more from their state water project, which comes from the Sierra, which could lighten the pressure for California municipalities anyway on the coastal plain to reduce their take on the Colorado River aqueduct. If people remember that tour at Gene Camp, that's the input or intake. So that probably will go down. That's the good news. The things that can't be met by that record snowpack in the Sierra is, places like Imperial Irrigation District, which, although they're talking about taking less water, they're still trying to continue to maximize their use in agricultural practices. So it's a balancing act, and I hear your frustration. It's one we all share.
Thanks. Dr. Munger.
Yeah, I just want to be brief here. So to follow up on Director Catlin's question, and the lower states and California has the intentionally created surplus in the reservoir. Why can't we put our SCPP, SC, whatever that SCCP water in as intentionally created surplus for us in Lake Powell as well? I mean, it's good for them, it's good for us. And then when we get ready to need it for the 7.5, a running average over 10 years, we would be able to use that. We're just not getting to play the game here fairly. So I don't know what that.
Well, again, I can jump in, anybody else can too, but essentially the demand management storage agreement does allow for that in Lake Powell, or the original units. And in fact, that's what we're trying to look at through our demand management pilot project, which is just getting kicked off. And so we're looking at that. That is the key difference between demand management and system conservation. System conservation, SCPP, is what we're under now. Demand management is something we may get involved in the future pursuant to that agreement.
Right. Any other comments? All right, Andy, we'll turn it back to you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. I just wanted to finish by seconding Zane's thanks to Lindsay DeFreitas for writing the bulk of my testimony. I would also say that Zane and Amy and others helped out as well. So it was a true group effort, which is part of the great thing about having an amazing team at the River District. Sometimes I'm just the mouthpiece. So it was great to have a good team effort and spend some time well, it's nice to be back from DC. I'll put it that way. So, I would like to turn it over. I believe it's Madam President. I believe the next agenda item is the General Counsel's report.
That's correct. And Peter, will turn it over to you. And I don't know if you have any open sessions or if you need to move us into executive.
My recommendation, Madam Chair, is that the board convene into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402 paren 4B and E to discuss the item listed on agenda tab 3A.
So
we have a
moved.
motion.
So
Motion
moved.
by Moore.
Second.
Second by Catlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are in executive session. All right.
This meeting is being recorded.
I believe we're good to go, Peter. We're recording and the waiting room has been open to allow people back into the meeting.
Thank you. Andy and Madam Chair and River District Board, during the board's executive session of its special joint meeting today, the board discussed with staff and council the item listed on agenda tab 3A. I do not believe there is any formal or proposed actions coming out of executive session, so that completes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Peter. Any final comments, anything for the good of the order? Thank you all for your time and for your extra time with us today and your engagement on this difficult issues. Thanks, and thanks, staff.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.